I'm scared of what the narcissist might do. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. This is a common sentiment that is issued by individuals, usually as a consequence of having to take some step that would help them deal with the narcissist, usually in relation to the implementation of no contact. The victim is frightened of what the narcissist may well do. Naturally, there is evidence to support this concern. After all, they thought they were with somebody that was kind, loving, generous, and then it all went wrong. Not only that, it went wrong spectacularly. This individual could have engaged in a range of behaviours towards them which would have included physical and sexual assault, isolation from friends, theft, the taking of money, the appropriation of other assets, smearing this individual, making life difficult for them so that they've struggled to undertake their work, engaged in parental alienation with regard to their children, damaged relationships with friends, with neighbours, cause all manner of mind games so that the individual finds themselves wrapped up in circular conversations, bringing up the past, having false accusations thrown at them, being subjected to cross-examination. And thus, all of this behaviour is thoroughly unpleasant and indeed fear-inducing for that victim. Having been subjected to the various malign manipulations, in effect, the victim is aware of the capacity that the narcissist has for doing harm to them. I know what he's capable of. I know what she could do. I know what they could probably do towards me to make my life even more difficult. And therefore the individual becomes scared of what the narcissist may well do. However, as a consequence of my unrivaled insight into the minds of my kind, I'm able to explain to you that there's actually much that you can do to reduce your concerns in that regard. The first is to keep in mind that the fact of the matter is that not all narcissists are necessarily the rampant beasts that they portray themselves to be. This is not by any means meant to invalidate people's experiences, as I know there are many people who suffer horrendously as a consequence of their entanglement. But in many instances, it's a fear of what the narcissist may actually do, and this results in, of course, the use of threat. I'd encourage you to watch my videos about the narcissist and the use of threat, particularly with regard to lesser and mid-range narcissists, to understand that. But essentially, many narcissists make great play out of acting like the bogeyman. In actual fact, their energy levels, level of application, talent, means that they're not necessarily going to be as awful as you might think they would be. It's commonly the case that often many people get information about the way that a narcissist behaves from their own experience, but also from learning about the experiences of others. And there are plenty of videos and blogs which talk about the horrendous experiences of certain individuals. What has to be borne in mind that in many of those recollections, what you're actually listening to is an unaware mid-range narcissist talking about what they believed their experience was, where they believe themselves to be the victim. Naturally, there are some genuine victim accounts, and awful as they are, but many of them, particularly which go along with the idea that the narcissist is going to hunt you across hill and dale in order to grind you into the dust, are actually perpetrated by unaware mid-range narcissists. That individual, the unaware mid-range narcissist, has likely suffered the escape of their intimate partner primary source. As a consequence of that, they then need to take action to get that individual back under control. But it may well be that taking such action directly is denied to them. Thus, the first assertion of control cannot be effected. Therefore, the narcissism causes them to seek to assert control indirectly. And what better way of doing so than creating a YouTube channel and talking about how you have been the victim of a narcissist, so you get lots of people saying, "Oh, how awful the way you've been treated. You're so brave to be sharing your experiences." And what's actually happening is this unaware narcissist is engaging in a subconscious revision of history, relaying to you how they have been abused, when in actual fact, they were the abuser. They believe everything that they're saying, and commensurate with showmanship, the grandiosity of the melodrama, the unaware narcissist talks about the awful, torturous experience they suffered at the hands of the narcissist, and how the narcissist had hacked into all of their devices, and how the narcissist had pursued them across land and sea like some unrelenting poltergeist, following them from house to house and disrupting their daily lives. This is actually the narcissist telling you a story, a tale that never existed. And it's done because their narcissism is generating that to cause them to assert control over their viewership, indirectly over the innocent victim who they wrongly believe to be a narcissist, and of course to generate fuel from everybody's responses. What this then does is cause unaware viewers to believe, oh, this person is a victim of a particularly awful narcissist. The unaware mid-range narcissist is going to ramp it up for the maximum experience. It can't be a beige experience for them. It has to be the very worst narcissist that has completely pursued them. And therefore, the unaware viewer thinks they're watching videos from a genuine victim, and then ends up thinking, my God, narcissists, they'll pursue you across the world in order to cause problems. It's awful. Now, as I state, there are some narcissists that will behave that way, but they're actually very rare. Because this leads on to our second point about why you should not necessarily be so scared of what the narcissist might do. The truly Machiavellian narcissists, the ones that have the ability and the resources, and then the mindset and the inclination to make your life a living hell, are actually quite rare. And the majority of narcissists are unaware, lessers and mid-range. Again, there's no denying that they will cause problems for people. But often those problems continue because the individuals, not knowing what they're dealing with, continue to kick the hornet's nest, and thus end up inviting more of the unpleasantness from the narcissist directly onto them. But in actual fact, most narcissists, if you kept your head down, would go elsewhere. Why? Because at the end of the day, their narcissism operates in an economy setting, and what it prefers is to get the prime aims with a minimum of effort. Thus, as you know, the prime aims are control, fuel, character traits, and residual benefits. Let us say you are the former intimate partner primary source of a narcissist. Rather than keep interacting with that narcissist by saying, why have you left me and gone off with him or her? Where's the money that you owe me? Why aren't you talking to me? When are you going to see the kids? Why did you treat me this way, etc.? You stay away and implement a successful no-contact regime. You come up on the radar as you invariably would do with that narcissist, and they seek to assert control over you directly, but they can't because you've got a very good no-contact regime. The narcissism needs to get that control over you, but it has the luxury of choice, direct, indirect, or withdrawal. Thus, the narcissist is able to get that control either indirectly or by staying in a position of withdrawal. Thus, that component of the prime aims is achieved. What about the fuel? You're not the only person on planet Earth. The narcissists get fuel from lots of other places. And therefore, if you don't present yourself as a ready target, the narcissist has no choice but to go elsewhere. Thirdly, character traits. Fourthly, residual benefits. They can also be obtained from other people. Take, for example, you need to buy some milk. You go to your convenience store and find it's closed. Do you then decide that you'll get in a taxi and go to the airport, Fly to another continent, take a taxi at the other end to go to a store to buy some milk, and then do the journey in reverse? Of course you don't. You just go to another convenience store. And it's the same with the narcissist. Rather than the narcissist expend massive amounts of energy trying to pursue you, when the narcissism recognizes that that is not going to achieve anything, the narcissism, again adopting its position of an economy setting, looks at the situation and, of course, will try initially to draw you back in. But once the narcissism recognizes that that's not getting it anywhere, it decides, right, let's go and find somebody else. Indeed, part of the reason why you have been disengaged from is invariably the case that the narcissist has got somebody else. And the only reason the narcissist has been bothering with you is because you keep bothering them. And if you stayed away from them, you don't even merit a second thought. Many people don't like that idea. They don't like the concept of no longer mattering. But if you don't matter to the narcissist, you're not going to be on the narcissist's radar, and therefore the narcissist isn't going to come after you. And therefore, you need not be scared of what the narcissist might actually then do. Thus, the point of all of that is to explain that the narcissist will, of course, attempt to draw you back in, particularly where your former intimate partner, primary source, who has escaped, not if they've disengaged from you. You've got a head start on your no-contact regime in those circumstances. But even where you've escaped and the narcissist tries to draw you back in, if you implement a solid no-contact regime, the narcissist is forced to go elsewhere, and it doesn't take too much for that to happen. The reason it ordinarily doesn't happen is because people don't know how to do no contact properly, and they make it too easy. So the narcissist gets back in and then punishes them eventually for their transgressions. They make it seem like they have been pursuing you with fervour and a relentless dedication. In actual fact, you made it pretty easy for them to get back in. The third reason why you're invariably scared of what the narcissist might do, and perhaps excessively so, is the presence of emotional thinking. Emotional thinking wants you to enter one or more of the 5 arenas of interaction. Thus, it wants you talking about how frightened you are. It wants you thinking about who's that outside, what was that noise. It wants you watching the narcissist so you think that by watching them, you'll know what they're doing and therefore that will protect you. It may even cause you to contact the narcissist to plead to be left alone. Thus, your emotional thinking wants you to believe that the narcissist is going to do all manner of awful things to you post-relationship in order to continue to keep you compelled by entering those arenas and thus feeding the addiction. Accordingly, it creates the idea that the narcissist is always watching you, that the narcissist is stalking you. Yes, those things do happen, but there are many instances where I'm consulted by people, and they talk about their circumstances, and I can tell their emotional thinking has caused them to believe that they're being watched and stalked, when in actual fact they're not. And a simple examination of the evidence demonstrates that to them. I'm able to see this as a consequence of not being afflicted by emotional thinking and having a dispassionate and objective view of the scenario. Thus, I'm able to make them feel a hell of a lot better by explaining to them that there isn't any actual evidence to support the fact that they are being stalked, that their devices are being hacked, that they're being watched, etc. Their emotional thinking drives them to believe that because the emotional thinking wants them continuing to engage with the narcissist. Thus, one of the things that emotional thinking does is exacerbate the effect of the narcissist to cause the victim to believe that the narcissist is everywhere at once, that the narcissist is tracking you, that the narcissist is never going to stop until you're dead. The fourth reason why you ought not to be as scared as you might be is simply this. If you put in place a solid, total no-contact regime, then the narcissist can't get to you, and therefore you can't fear it, what they will do. If you're frightened the narcissist will beat you up, put yourself in a position whereby the narcissist cannot find you. I appreciate that some of you will say, well, that's easier said than done, but many people are paralyzed by this fear and don't actually try. If you're frightened of what the narcissist might say to you, if you're worried about receiving nasty messages, you make it so you can't receive any. You change your email, you change your phone number. You don't open letters. You get a gatekeeper to do so. You follow all the steps that are set out in my no contact book. And therefore, there would be nothing to fear, because even though the narcissist may well be, of course, a nasty piece of work that has mistreated you in the past, if the narcissist can't write to you, ring you, text you, message you on social media, be physically proximate to you, they can't actually do anything to you. Yes, they may well smear you, but you may not even know about that, and therefore need not be concerned. The problem is, many people admit to the narcissist, and thus they become scared because the narcissist is able to do things to them. They go and look at what the narcissist is writing about them. Don't look, you won't know, you won't be scared by it. And thus, whilst of course it is not the case to say that you should dismiss the behaviour of the narcissist, because narcissists do engage in some very terrible treatment of people, it's often not as bad as people realise, particularly post-relationship. During the sustained devaluation, that's a different scenario. But many people are frightened of going no contact because they're worried about how the narcissist will react. That's emotional thinking. And the fact is, the spook stories that are put around by unaware mid-range narcissists, the fact that the narcissist operates on an economy setting, that it's only certain narcissists who really, truly have the sadism, the resource and the reach to really, really go after you, that emotional thinking makes the whole thing seem far worse than it actually is, and that people often don't take sufficient responsibility for their no-contact regimes and therefore invite further interaction with the narcissist, means that they end up being more scared of the narcissist than they ought to be, and thus they don't take the appropriate steps to recover money that's owed to them, to implement a no-contact regime, and to move away, to start divorce proceedings. If you find yourself in the situation that you're scared of what the narcissist may well do to you, then I would recommend that you organise an audio consultation with me so that I can take you through the evidence, that I can tell you what steps you can take, and also, by doing the narc detector, you can find out what type of narcissist you're dealing with. Because certain narcissists are far less likely to behave in a particular way compared to others, and that will bring you a degree of reassurance. By going to the evidence and applying the logic of my work, there's much you can do to reduce this fear that you experience. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.